Hi, grade sixes. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of language. We're going to be looking at verbs again, and we're going to be looking at a form of verb which is called the progressive tense, and it's also known as the continuous. So we're continuing learning about verbs. We're going to learn about progressive verbs, otherwise known as continuous, and you're going to need to have a pen, a pencil, some colors, highlighters, so that you can make some notes. We're going to draw a table a little bit later on, so if you have a ruler or something to draw a line with, that will help you when you get there. We're also going to be making some notes in your book today, so just be ready to take some notes down and just press pause when you need to and continue when you are ready. Alright, verb tenses. We use different tenses of verbs in sentences depending on when the action takes place. So I'd like you to write that down just to remind yourself, although you should already have an idea about that. Right. We're just going to draw a little diagram to remind us of the three main tenses. On the left, if you could draw a little arrow going to the left and write a heading past tense, your diagram doesn't need to look exactly the same as mine, as long as you indicate that there's a past tense, which is an action that already took place. We have the present tense. We know it's a verb or an action happening now at this present time. And then to the right, we have the future, an action that is going to happen. So if you could draw a little diagram, it doesn't need to look exactly the same as mine. Good. All right. Today we're focusing on progressive tense verbs. Progressive tense verbs can occur in the past, in the present, and the future, and I'm going to show you how. Progressive tense verbs must have a helping verb. Helping verbs are verbs like will, are, is, plus a verb ending ing. So, for example, was is a helping verb, and verb ending in ing, oh, it could be anything, swimming, eating, jumping. And then just a note about the agreement of verbs, and I'm going to be very strict on this next year. Singular subjects must match with singular verbs, and plural subjects must match with plural verbs. So I'll explain a little bit more about that later. I would like you to take this down as a note. So just to show you again, progressive means that the action is still in progress. We don't know quite when it began or when it's going to end. It's happening. Progressive means that the action is still happening. It's in progress. Some people prefer to use the term continuous. It might be easier to remember that an action is continuous. It's continuing. So the action going on at that time is continuous. So I'd like you to draw a little table like this in your book. Then press pause. I don't mind too much about the dimensions. You can turn your book on its side and take up a whole page if you like, or you can draw it fairly small, over half the page. I'm not going to give you specific measurements. As long as you have 4 little rectangles going from left to right, and 4 little rectangles going from top to bottom. All right. So you'll have 4 rows and 4 columns. We are going to write a little bit inside of them, so just make sure you don't do them too tiny. Alright, we already know the 3 main tenses that occur when we're using verbs. We have the past, the present, and the future. If you have different colors, please use them to differentiate between the different tenses, but you don't have to use the same colors as me. Alright. So just check the first block should be empty, and then it should read past, present, future. Alright, I want to show you this singular subject I. If we're going to use the past progressive helping verb, we would say I was. For example, I was studying. If we're going to use the progressive or continuous form of that verb in the present, it's going to change. So then we will say I am studying. Do you see that was and am have the same meaning, but they give us a different indication of the different tense? I was studying. I am studying. What do you think it's going to be in the future? I will be studying. Can you see was, am, and will be? They have a very similar meaning. They're all continuous or progressive, but they look slightly different depending on which tense they are. Most of you do this quite naturally. Let's look at he or she. Do you think it will be the same, or do you think it will change a lot? Let's try. He was studying. She was studying. Good. So it's still a singular subject. So the past progressive verb will not change. It will remain was. If I take he or she and I use the present progressive, it's going to change. Can you see how it would sound strange if I took the one above? If I said he am studying or she am studying. You can already hear that there's something a little bit off. All right. So he is studying, she is studying. And in the future, it's going to stay will be. Now you can check simply by saying the alternatives out loud and hearing if they sound correct. He will be studying, she will be studying. Yes, it sounds correct. Now, though I and he and she are all singular, let's see what happens when we have a plural subject. All right. Let's try we and they. It will sound very strange if we say we was studying or they was studying. There needs to be a little change. And so the verb changes its form slightly. We'll say we were studying. They were studying. Do you think it will stay the same or change in the present? Let's try. We am studying. We is studying. What do you think is going to go into the next block? What do you do in the present? We are studying. Good. Or they are studying. Very good. Let's have a look at the last empty block. We want to say in the future they are progressively or continuously going to be studying. So they will say, will be. All right. We will be studying, they will be studying. Have a look. It might seem strange, but all of those words, was, am, is, will be, were, are, have pretty much the same meaning. But they are changing the way that they look depending on which tense they are. Most of you do this quite naturally. I would like you to make sure that you have this table in your book. You don't need to study it off by heart. I'm not going to ask you to redraw the table, but I would like you to have it as a reference so that if I say that there's a problem with your tense in your writing, or if you're unsure when you're writing a sentence, you can go and use it to refer to. Good. I want to give you an example to see. It might sound very strange, but it comes quite naturally to us. Let's use the example, I was walking. What is the subject, or who is the subject of that sentence? The subject is I. Is I singular or plural? Yes, I is singular. Good. Now we're going to use a helping verb and a verb with ing to create a past continuous or past progressive. So I say I was walking. If we wanted to change that continuous tense into the present, then our subject's going to remain the same. Do you see I didn't change? Walking is going to stay the same. It's still going to be the verb with ing. That ing shows that it's continuous. What's going to change is the helping verb. All right, because it's present, I'm going to change it to am. Let's try one in the future. We're going to use the same singular subject, I. We'll use the same verb, walk. Because it's continuous, it gets an ing. Because it's the future, it gets a helping verb, but the helping verb it looks a certain way. It takes the form of will be. So can you see that those three sentences are very similar? They all deal with I as the subject. They all have a helping verb. They all have the same action, which is walk plus ing. They are all continuous. But the thing that's changing is the helping verb. Was, am, will be. I'd like you to write these examples down just so you can start familiarizing yourself with the terminology. All right. In your textbook on page 86 and 87, you'll see that there is a note I'd like you to just read through this note. And then I would like you to do the very short exercise on your own without looking back at any other notes, but just trying to do it yourself from scratch, 1 ABC. I don't want you to turn back anywhere. I want to see if you remember how to do it. Then I want you to read the little note about adding ing to the main verb. If you'd like to take this note down in your book in form of a diagram, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I don't mind if you just use your textbook as a reference. Then I'd like you to try exercise 2. It's simply an ABC. This won't take you long. I don't want you to turn back in your book to try and find clues. I want you to try and use just what you've learned today. And then I don't want you to do the last exercise, right? I would like you to read page 86 of your textbook to exercise 1. Read page 87 of your textbook to exercise 2. They are very, very short. It's going to take you no time at all. When you are writing the exercise, you need to write the whole sentence. I shouldn't see any singular words. Okay? And please check that your spelling is correct when you copy it from the textbook. Please don't do the speaking activity at the bottom. We're going to do something similar another time. And I hope that made some sense. And the more that you practice and the more that you see it, the more familiar you will become.